They thought Monica Ellison was just another passenger, but she was actually their biggest client and their last warning. You'd think someone like Monica would be hard to overlook, a 46-year-old black woman with braids swept into a flawless bun, wearing a cream-colored pantsuit that looked custom-made, sharp and tailored to perfection. She carried herself with a quiet confidence that never demanded attention, yet always commanded it. No flashy designer bags or entourage, just a simple leather tote, a phone she barely glanced at, and a presence that you simply couldn't ignore. But in certain places, on certain flights, it wasn't about how powerful you were. It was about whether they believed you belonged. That Thursday afternoon, Monica stood at Gate C-18 at Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. Not LAX, not JFK, just MSP. She preferred flying out of here when she could. Fewer people, less noise, fewer pretenders acting like they knew her. The gate agent called first-class passengers, and Monica stepped forward without hesitation. No rush, no eye contact, just a slight nod. When her boarding pass scanned green, a young man, barely 25, gave her a quick glance before forcing a polite smile. "Enjoy your flight, miss." He hesitated, then added, "Ellison." She didn't correct him. "No, it's Dr. Ellison, or CEO, or I'm the founder of the tech behind the system you just scanned." Monica had learned long ago that silence speaks louder than pride, especially when you already know your worth. She took seat 1A by the window, not for the view, but for the space it gave her to think. The flight to Zurich was long, but she'd handled worse. Like the time she flew to Dubai on 2 hours' notice to negotiate an 8-figure licensing deal, on 0 sleep. Zurich, that was nothing. She settled in, crossed her legs, and pulled a folder from her tote. Inside was her keynote speech for the International FinTech Innovation Summit. 35 minutes on equity and tech infrastructure, every word written by her. Across the aisle, a man in a Patagonia jacket wrestled with his overhead bag. He glanced at her, maybe expecting help. Monica blinked once, then returned to her notes. She no longer made small talk on planes. Not anymore. Minutes later, the rest of first class filled in, a blonde woman in inexpensive yoga gear, an older man wearing a golf hat and carrying sour breath, a mother with a toddler kicking the seat in front of her, and finally, the late arrival, a white man in a wrinkled shirt who looked like he'd never flown business class before. He dropped into seat 1C across from Monica, his carry-on overflowing with snacks. Flight attendants began their routine, cheerful voices and practiced smiles. "Can I get you settled with a drink, Miss Ellison?" one asked. Kelly, or maybe Carrie. It was hard to catch over the pilot's garbled announcement. Monica nodded. "Still water, room temperature, please." The attendant blinked, paused like it was an odd request, jotted something down, and moved on. Monica didn't mind. She was used to those pauses, the silent judgments that people try to hide. She checked her email once, then powered down her phone. Nothing urgent, just a quiet flight and a job to finish once she landed. But what she didn't know was that by the time this flight ended, a single email she sent would cost the airline millions, put an entire crew on administrative leave, and ignite a nationwide conversation in corporate America about how quiet power really moves behind the scenes. But at 36,000 feet, control can slip away in the smallest, most unexpected ways. The plane took off right on time, the seatbelt sign clicked off, and the steady hum of the engine softened into a gentle background noise, the kind that usually made Monica feel drowsy just enough to think clearly. She reclined slightly, adjusted her seat, and tapped her fingers lightly on the edge of her tray table. She didn't need music or movies. Her mind was already miles ahead. The keynote speech, the Zurich panel, the Q&A on FinTech equity, the private meeting with the Swiss Development Fund. She ran through every detail like clockwork. This wasn't new to her. The only new thing was an odd tension in the air, subtle, like a loose thread tugging at the edge of a shirt. You couldn't see it, but pull too hard and everything might unravel. Flight attendants moved through first class with smooth, practiced ease. The man across from her, the one in the wrinkled shirt, leaned into the aisle and joked with one of them. "Got anything stronger than this sparkling water?" he asked, holding up his glass. The attendant, a tall man with a military-style haircut, laughed politely and offered him bourbon. "Just say when," he said with a smile. The man smirked, and the two chuckled together. Monica watched their interaction, familiar, almost rehearsed. It wasn't about kindness, it was about comfort, and comfort in these spaces rarely included her. The woman who had earlier brought Monica still water came down the aisle again, carrying a tray. She handed drinks to a couple in row 2, passed a Coke to the man in 1C, then walked right past Monica's row without stopping. No water, no glance, nothing. Monica raised an eyebrow and waited, thinking maybe the woman had forgotten, but she didn't come back. She didn't even look her way. Across the aisle, the man in the wrinkled shirt took a loud gulp of his bourbon and let out a satisfied sigh. He leaned back, loosening his tie like he was relaxing at home on his couch. Monica sat up straight, calm and composed. She pressed the call button. Ding. The tall attendant appeared, still smiling. "Yes, Mrs. Ellison?" "I requested still water earlier and never received it," Monica said. "Oh," he blinked quickly, clearly caught off guard. "Let me check with the galley." She nodded once. He disappeared. Minutes passed. Other passengers got refills, crackers, and appetizers. The woman in row 2 was halfway through her wine. Still no water. The man returned, apologetic. "Ms. Ellison, it looks like we're out of still water. We have sparkling or club soda." Monica stared at him. "I asked for still water when I boarded. I know you carry it for first class." He hesitated, his smile fading. "Yes, well, it looks like the cabin ran through our supply faster than expected." He avoided her eyes. She paused, studying him. There was something in his tone, like she was asking for too much, like she was being difficult. Slowly, deliberately, she leaned back and said, "That'll be all." He left. 2 rows ahead, the woman in yoga gear held an unopened bottle of still water. Monica watched as the attendant offered her a second bottle. So much for running out of supply. Across the aisle, the man in the wrinkled shirt now had food, chicken and rice, something warm and seasoned. He hadn't pre-ordered it, Monica overheard him say during his conversation. Monica overheard the man across the aisle mention his meal. He hadn't even pre-ordered, yet there it was, a full tray delivered without delay. But the final blow came moments later when the same flight attendant, who had ignored Monica, walked past her again. Not a glance, not a word, as if Monica wasn't even there. She didn't frown or sigh, didn't shift in her seat. Instead, she calmly reached down, pulled out her notebook, clicked her pen, and started writing. But these weren't notes for her keynote anymore. She was documenting something else. Dinner service began quietly. Flight attendants rolled their silver carts down the aisle, trays clinking softly, polite whispers filling the cabin. "Would you like chicken or pasta?" they asked, delivering the gentle luxury first class promised. Monica didn't look up at first. She was still writing, flipping through her folder on her lap. She knew exactly what she'd ordered. A plant-based entree, soy-free, gluten-free. Not a trend, but a necessity due to allergies. She had submitted her meal choice 3 days before the flight. Double-checked it. Across the aisle, the man chuckled again. "Pasta for me, unless the chicken's good." "It's great tonight," the attendant replied. "We've got extra, so you're in luck." That word, extra, stuck in Monica's mind. Another passenger was offered a second bread roll. Someone else received a fresh drink. Meanwhile, Monica waited as the cart moved closer. She closed her folder and sat upright, ready. Then it happened. The attendant, same woman, same forced smile, stopped at Monica's row, glanced down, and paused. Leaning in slightly, she said in a rehearsed tone, "We're so sorry, but it seems we've run out of your selected meal." Monica blinked. "That's not possible," she said flatly. "I submitted my selection 3 days ago. It was confirmed." The woman tilted her head, feigning sympathy. "Yes, but the catering team didn't load enough special meals. We can offer you the pasta entree instead." "Does it contain gluten?" Monica asked. "Yes, but we can try to find you something else. Maybe a fruit plate or—" "I'm allergic to wheat," Monica interrupted. "Oh," the woman said, already stepping back. "Let me check with the galley." Monica didn't respond. She glanced at her watch. 34 minutes into meal service. From her seat, she watched the crew come and go, but no one returned to her row. She waited. Across the aisle, the man who hadn't pre-selected anything now had a full tray: pasta, salad, bread, and a brownie. "You sure you don't want this chicken?" he joked to the woman beside him. She laughed. "No, I'm sticking with the salad tonight." He leaned back, shoving the chicken into his mouth with the careless confidence of someone who's never had to fight for space. Monica remained still. Her stomach had given up hope long ago. What got to her wasn't hunger. It was the principle. She didn't want the food anymore. She wanted the truth. 15 minutes later, the attendant returned. No tray, no apology. Just a small plate with 3 apple slices and a lemon wedge. "This is all we could find," she said, placing it in front of Monica like a gift. Monica looked down and calmly asked, "Where is your supervisor?" "She's assisting in the main cabin. I can ask her to come by once she's free." Monica nodded once. "Do that." The woman left, but no supervisor came. 10 minutes passed, then 20, still nothing. Monica looked around. Every other first-class passenger was eating or finishing their meal. The crew laughed near the curtain, oblivious. Even the pilot walked by to chat with someone in 1D. Monica. She was invisible, or worse, deliberately ignored. Leaning forward, she pulled out her phone and opened the Notes app. She typed, "Flight 622, MSP to Zurich, first-class meal service denied, allergy info ignored, no communication from supervisor, second-class treatment in a first-class seat, crew names, Carrie R., Andrew M." She paused, then added, "Documentation begins now." It wasn't about drama or revenge. It was about accountability. She clicked off her phone, folded her arms, and leaned back. Still no apology, no water, no meal. But her mind was already working, because when you've spent your whole life being underestimated, you learn how to turn disrespect into strategy. By hour 4, the cabin lights were dimmed. Most first-class passengers had reclined, wrapped in blankets, slipping on headphones. Soft snores echoed from somewhere near the back, but Monica wasn't tired. Not anymore. She sat upright, legs crossed at the ankle, tray table down and empty, except for her notebook, phone, and that untouched plate of sad apple slices. Still no one had come back. Not the supervisor, not a single word of acknowledgement. It was as if she didn't exist. But she did, and every passing second quietly built a story she knew how to tell. Not to the public, not to the press, but to the people who make decisions at the highest level. She glanced down at her notes again. The project integrating Novalift's predictive analytics into HorizonJet's loyalty and customer service systems, a multi-year contract worth tens of millions. The airline had been courting Novalift for 6 months, with dinners, invites, panel appearances, and now this. Monica reached for her phone, scrolling through her inbox until she found it. The last email from HorizonJet's VP of Business Development. Subject line, "Looking forward to finalizing next week." She didn't smile. Instead, she opened her camera, angled it toward the tray table, and snapped a photo of the untouched plate, time-stamped. Then the still-lit service call button. Then the in-flight seating chart on the screen, her seat 1A clearly visible. She attached all 3 to a new email draft addressed to Novalift's general counsel and CC'd the VP of Operations. Subject, Flight 622, urgent adjustment needed. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before typing. Need immediate hold on HorizonJet rollout. Reassessment required regarding vendor compliance with service equity clauses. Incident on current flight demonstrates clear alignment issues. She stared at the screen. Her heart wasn't racing. Her fingers didn't tremble. This wasn't the first time someone tried to make her feel small. But it was the first time the cost of that disrespect would leave a paper trail. She hit save, not send, not yet. Across the aisle, the man in the wrinkled shirt had kicked off his shoes and was loudly telling the woman beside him about his company's exit strategy. "I mean, it's all about leverage, right?" he said, swirling the last of his third bourbon. "You've got it, or you don't." Monica raised her eyes just slightly. He had no idea how real leverage worked. It wasn't about shouting, posturing, or being served. At first, it was about having the authority to make decisions that change lives, often without ever raising your voice. Monica turned back to her screen, hit send, then leaned back, exhaled slowly, and let her eyes close. But she wasn't resting. She was waiting, because some lessons are taught through press releases, and some through silence. Touchdown in Zurich was smooth. Cold morning light filtered through the cabin windows as the wheels met the tarmac. Monica didn't clap or cheer. She simply opened her eyes, adjusted her blazer, and straightened her posture. She looked exactly like what she was, someone in control, someone who knew what came next. Passengers stretched and yawned, checking their phones. The man across from her, now wearing mismatched socks, groaned about the time difference. "I'm going to feel this in my back all day," he muttered. Monica ignored him. She reached for her tote, carefully placed her folder inside, and zipped it shut. The crew made their final announcements. Monica waited. Still no supervisor, no explanation, no apology. Nothing. Calm and composed, she stood the moment the seatbelt sign blinked off. When she stepped off the plane and into the jet bridge, her phone vibrated. One message from the VP of Operations. Subject: Reflight 622. Understood. Contract hold initiated. Legal is drafting a revised equity clause. Meeting with Horizon Jet reps scheduled. Moving to pending. We'll let them make the next move. Monica tucked her phone away and kept walking. She moved through the airport with a quiet rhythm, past glass walls, glowing ads, and hurried travelers. When she reached the car service pickup zone, her driver was waiting, holding a small sign with her name. He took her bag without question. On the ride to the hotel, she finally allowed herself a moment to decompress. She looked out the window at Zurich's wet streets, glistening with morning rain. She thought about how many times she'd been overlooked, pushed aside, erased in rooms where she was the most qualified person at the table. But this wasn't about ego. It was about patterns, and whether those in power would keep pretending those patterns didn't exist until someone with leverage forced them to pay attention. By the time she arrived at the hotel, the dominoes were already falling. That afternoon, her phone rang, an unknown number. She answered without speaking. "Ms. Ellison, this is Kenneth Ward, Head of Corporate Partnerships at Horizon Jet. I wanted to personally apologize for your experience on Flight 622. I just heard about it. It's unacceptable." Monica let silence stretch. Finally, she said, "You're not calling to apologize. You're calling to stop the contract from slipping through your fingers." "Ma'am, please believe me. This doesn't reflect our values." "I don't care what it reflects," she interrupted. "I care what it proves." He hesitated. "I understand you've already pulled the partnership." "No," she replied. "We're pausing. Whether we pull depends on how seriously you take this problem. I can personally assure you." "Don't assure me, Kenneth. Show me." Her voice dropped low, firm. "Show me who gets held accountable. Show me who's removed. Show me who gets retrained. Then maybe I'll take another meeting. Until then, you're not ready to work with us." She hung up. Monica didn't need headlines or viral moments. She needed accountability. 2 days later, a memo from Horizon Jet leaked to a small industry blog. It mentioned suspension of key cabin crew pending investigation. It named Flight 622 and referred to a breach of inclusivity. Within 24 hours, LinkedIn posts began to light up. A quiet fire had started. Not loud, not angry, just precise. Because sometimes power isn't about volume, it's about knowing exactly where to apply pressure. Monica never made a public statement. No interviews, no op-eds, no anonymous leaks. She didn't need to. By the time her keynote rolled around that Friday morning at the FinTech Innovation Summit, most of the room already knew what had happened. Whispers traveled faster than press releases. Half the audience had read the leaked memo. The other half had heard the story. Black woman CEO denied a meal in first class, then froze a multi-million-dollar deal. But Monica didn't mention it, not once. Instead, she stood on stage in a navy blue suit, slides behind her showing graphs and case studies. She spoke about digital equity, responsible data use, and how corporations talk about inclusion until it's time to actually act on it. The applause was long and sincere, but for Monica, it wasn't about the praise. It was about the silence in the room afterward, the kind of silence that happens when people finally get it. That weekend, the airline called again, this time from the CEO's office. They offered to fly her back first class, complimentary. They promised to personally ensure her experience would be different. She declined quietly. She flew home with a different airline, one that had lost the original bid months ago but had been respectful, honest, and genuinely curious about what real inclusion looked like, not just how to market it. Her return flight was smooth, on time. She was offered still water the moment she sat down. The attendant used her name correctly. Small things. Not flashy, not loud, just right. Back at Novalift, the company released a short internal statement. We expect all of our partners to treat people with the dignity they deserve, not because of contracts, but because it's the standard. No hashtags, no grandstanding. But the message spread anyway. Executives started asking deeper questions about their vendors. Board members took a closer look at their diversity clauses. Other companies took notice, not because Monica dragged anyone publicly, but because of what she didn't say. Her restraint made it louder. Weeks later, Monica was invited to speak on a panel titled, "When Quiet Leadership Makes the Loudest Impact." She almost said no. She didn't like buzzwords and didn't care for attention, but she went. At the end of the panel, a young black woman, early 20s, nervous voice shaking, approached her. I just wanted to say, I've never seen someone like me handle something like that with so much grace. You didn't yell, you didn't post, you just moved differently, and it worked. Monica smiled, warm but sharp. Sometimes, she said, the most powerful thing you can do is make them explain their behavior to a room they respect more than you. The young woman didn't reply. She just nodded, like someone taking a note she'd keep for life. Later that night, Monica sat alone at a cafe in San Mateo, coffee in one hand, pen in the other, sketching ideas for Novalift's next platform. She wasn't thinking about the flight. Not really. She was thinking about what happens when people in power stop assuming silence means comfort, when the things we don't say force everyone else to listen harder. Not everything needs to be loud to spark change. Sometimes the softest voice in the room can flip the entire system, because the lesson wasn't about the meal. It was about who gets fed and who gets ignored, even when they've earned their seat at the table. If you've ever been overlooked, disrespected, or dismissed, remember this. You don't always have to react to make an impact. Sometimes moving with quiet clarity and holding people accountable behind the scenes speaks louder than any headline ever could. Use your position, use your voice, and most importantly, know your worth.